Start off with just standing and stand comfortably as you can. Not too concerned at the moment with the intricacies of posture, just so you feel supported. Rubbing your hands together. And then pads your fingers, just tapping over your face. Nice light, rapid movements with the pads of your fingers. Going over your head and neck. I use the palms of my hands here. Down to one shoulder. And then sides. Then onto the lower part of your back. And just, I use the side of my hands. Don't get caught up on technique. It's just to help you physically warm up, but also to sort of bring your attention into your body, around your hips. Then your legs down the outside of your legs, up the inside. Out, light on your belly. Finally, perhaps a little bit stronger on the upper part of your chest. Give your hands a shake. And then a little bit more attention to your standing posture. Feet are hip width apart. Remember, those of you who've done this before, there's a bit of leeway there. You could measure this from the outside of your foot, giving you a slightly narrower stance, the midline or the inside of your foot, which is my preference. Just so that you feel that your feet are in a position, your legs are in a position to support your hips support your shoulders. Toes pointing forwards or perhaps very slightly turned out. This is slightly turned out. That's a long way turned out. So if you do naturally have feet, as some of us do, that turn out a little bit, don't strain to pull your feet in, because you'll end up straining the knees. But just sort of gradually work them in and a little bit. Wait a little bit forwards, and just your hips settling back, almost like you just perched your bottom on a table, or if you're out for a walk and you're just sitting on the side of a wall or something like that. Getting the feeling of your weight beginning to drop down, and bringing your attention to the middle part of your body and starting to turn there, and letting that turning movement move up your body into your ribs, your shoulders, and finally into your arms and your hands. So these early exercises give us a chance to just line up in our minds the basics of the movements, common to all the movements, and really some of the things that give us the most benefit. The initial exercise, the tapping exercise, is a good one for actually bringing your attention into your body. And this is one of the things that we're trying to maintain the whole time, if possible. That awareness, that bringing in of your attention to your body has a calming effect on our minds, and also makes us more aware of our posture, and so opens the door to just changing posture gradually and gently. So your body's supported by your legs, of course. But you also want to try and feel that your back is supporting the front of your body. What we want to have here the shoulders in line with the hips. We often have a tendency to do this, to lean back, put the hunch forwards, gradually correcting that. You see my arms, my hands fall straight down the side of my body. Hips roughly above your ankles at this point. It's not a deep posture. Knees above the balls of your feet. And the overall effect is to allow your center of gravity to drop. And gradually also becoming aware of this inner structure of your body, the skeleton, surrounding tissues, and organs, forming this middle part of the body, from holding us, shaping us from within. And gradually realize that much of the tightness and the stiffness that we carry with us really isn't necessary, isn't required. And that becomes an encouragement to release that tightness. We gradually build up more confidence in our body's ability to support itself without tension or without stiffness. And that's reflected in the movement. When we start to loosen up a little bit around our hips and our lower back and in our shoulders, then we start to get this very smooth flowing quality to the movement, the rhythmic quality to the movement. As you get more experienced at this, start to focus your attention more deeply into your body, beginning to be aware of the play of your muscles, the extension, the contraction muscles, and then not just the muscles, but other tissues, including the fascial layer. So the awareness that I was talking about, like the physical aspects of the art, will benefit from practice. You'll become capable of being more and more focused internally, more and more sensitive to the nuanced changes that take place. At the moment, your arms are just swinging. You're not trying to move them. You're not trying to stop them moving. There's a very distinctive feeling there, one that we want to keep as we start to create more shapes. So turn your hands palm out, raise them up a little bit, no higher than your shoulders. Notice that my elbows are hanging down. And trying to maintain the shape without actually losing that very smooth, loose quality that we had at the beginning of this exercise. And then letting your hands come down. Turn one foot out, put the other foot forwards. Keep the width of your step. You can still see the background between my legs. And just moving your weight a little bit. And once again, letting your center turn and letting that turn move your arms. The weight transfer is another major element in our Tai Chi practice. So once again, in this initial part of the class, initial part of the practice session, we get the physical warm-up, certainly, which is important. But we will also begin to put in place the building blocks, the ingredients that are going to come together in the different movements, the different exercises. And we can think of those in three aspects: as the physical aspect, body, mechanics of the movement. There's our minds, our awareness, and that leads into our intention. These are intentional movements. Change over now, the other foot forwards. And finally, the third aspect of the three is the movement itself, the flow, the energy, the momentum, however you care to think about it. And these three, I described them separately, but I also describe them as being like the three legs of a tripod. They mutually support and are supported by each other. And really, like in the tripod, they come together as a type as one thing. And this is where we start to get the experience of chi in this combination of these, we refer to as the three treasures. Okay. So coming back to the parallel stance for the first series of exercises. Again, your weight forwards. 50% of your weight in each leg at the moment. We're not moving, we won't be moving the weight for a few exercises. But of that 50% in each leg, 70% of it should be forwards. So again, thinking about this posture a little bit more, tilt forwards, and I'm exaggerating at this point. And eventually what will happen is I'll get pulled forwards. If I'm too far back, oops, there I go, I'll get pulled backwards. So somewhere there's a midpoint, a point of equilibrium where gravity pulls me down into my feet, ideally just behind the ball of each foot, but maybe not quite there for some of you as yet. But if I center my weight just behind the ball of each foot, you see I'm slightly angled forwards here. Again, I exaggerate, and I correct that by allowing gravity to pull my hips back and down. And again, this gives me this slight dropping down feeling here. I come to rest, letting my center of gravity dropping. So we learn one of the first principles of Tai Chi, which is to root down, lower your center of gravity. The more stable you're going to be. If your center of gravity is up in your chest, then it'll be a strain on your back, hard to soften your shoulders. Your center of gravity is down, if you like, between your feet, then you'll feel more stable. Again, less need for tightness and stiffness. Now, from here, letting your legs drop, letting your hips drop back a little bit more, and then push it on. Be careful not to overextend or overbend your knees. Sinking down and pushing up. And again, observing the process so that we can note that point where the pressure coming up from the legs as we sink down begins to push us up, and note the point where gravity at the top of the movement pulls us down. So we have these two movements, these two energies working through our body. The pull of gravity, which we try to yield to, we allow it to work through our body. And in the process of doing that, that loads the legs, like being on a trampoline, and eventually they'll push you up. So we have a cycle of movement, a cycle of energy, ideally moving without restriction through the body. Bringing your hands around as though you're cradling the ball. And this time, letting that movement upwards, push your hands up, and then imagine the ball underneath your arms, sinking down. Nice and gently, pushing up and pressing down. So this is the exercise routine down to establish right at the beginning this all important foundation for the movement. Important, as I've already noted, from a stability point of view, from a structural point of view, but also, again, as already recognized, the deeper the root, the more likely we are to get this sense of a movement and energy coming up from the ground, but expanding and contracting. blowing out with the root and then sinking back in. Breathing is nice and smooth, no particular method or pattern to the breathing. Just letting your body respond naturally in all sorts of ways to this steady rhythmic movement. And then turning your hands palm out. And going into the exercise, the wild goose. With this one, the image of the bird in flight may convey a certain quality, movement. When we come across these images in Tai Chi, and there's a lot of them, it's important that we don't chase after them. If they resonate with us, then they can bring something to the movement, but we don't want to get distracted by them in any way. So if an image doesn't work for you, it's not a massive failure, not a failure at all. This means it's not the right image at the right time. It may come to mean something to you at some point. But when it does have that resonance, just have a sense of what it may bring to the movement. And then letting your hands drop, crossing in front of your belly, push up, elbows being pushed out first, drawing your fingers around and sinking down. This is called parting the clouds. It has this sort of lovely opening, expansive quality about it. Easy and gently. Making sure you don't move too far. Ideally, you will feel with all the movements that you could have moved just a little bit further. Do one more. Let your hands drop down to your sides. The weight of your arms hanging, and next time you push up on one side, let that push your fingers up. Wind around as though you're plucking a fruit off a tree. Pull down. This is dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Change sides. And once again, only go into what we would describe as something like 70 or 80% of the movement. The idea being that we want to retain within the body what I think of as a sense of spaciousness. There's postures that we take, lowering the center of gravity, beginning to release tightness and stiffness in our bodies, create space. And within that space, we start to get the flow of the movement. We don't want the movements themselves to be done in such a way that begins to constrict that space. If you move to 100%, then there's nowhere else to go. So everything starts to pull against each other. We're not trying to stretch. Nothing wrong with stretching, by the way. It's just it's not what we're actually doing in these sessions. So this is Dragon Plucks the Stars from the Sky. Remind yourself of how your body is supported, your legs, your back, your skeleton. One more time. Now, bring your hands to your sides and The next expansion, hands being pressed up just a little bit above your head, palms up, and then slowly down. Lift again, let your elbows drop and push out to the sides. With both of these movements, your hands will be slightly in front of your shoulders. So here rather than here. And here rather than here. This creates a feeling in your upper body, your back being somewhat longer and broader than the front of your body. Remember, your back supports the front of your body. But just try and be aware of the sensations of movement in your back and your sides as you do these two movements. I sometimes think of it as like having my back massage. First of all, lengthways. And then sideways. One more like this. Still, the weight forwards a little bit, hips dropping back. So still with that sense of movement downwards and upwards through your body. And this time, we begin to direct that movement by turning in the center of your body. As you push out through your sides, you turn and your arms are pushed out in a different diagonal direction, turning back. That will help to bring your hands back to your hips. Turn the other way and back. And then facing forward without the turn and pushing out. So pushing in four directions, and we can begin to see how significant that center part of the body is. The area between your hips and your waist. It's the area that we want to feel is dropping towards the ground. We're rooting down. We've already seen how when our hips drop back, there's a slight rotation, vertical rotation in that center part of the body. And that leads into the rooting, and it also helps bring our head, shoulders more upright, as we'll see later. And finally, our arms are, if you like, under the direction of the center. But in fact, the whole body is under the direction of the center of the body. We focus our attention, we focus our intention through that central area. We come back to this area, our attention and our movements extend outwards, but then we come back. And this returning movement is important for mind and body. Coming back to this quieter, more grounded space, literally centered. This time, your hands drop down, and the next feeling of expansion, one arm being pushed out, swinging up this time rather than straight up, and then down the center line. Try and just draw your fingers back a little bit with a slight feeling of pushing outwards through the heel of your palm. It's called circling palm. Imagine standing underneath an arch, like an old church door, pushing your hand out and just sliding your hand around the arch till it reaches this point in line with your nose. This time, It's comfortable. Again, turning the center part of your body. And then change sides and just notice any difference between one side of your body and another. There often is that difference for all sorts of reasons. And then again, if it's comfortable, just add in the turn. It's quite a strong movement through your back and your shoulders and hips. So be careful. Remember, we don't want to reintroduce tightness. We want to maintain that spacious quality within the body to allow for the internal flow. Letting your arms rest. And go back to this movement that we did at the beginning, sinking down and pushing up. When we did this, our hips were dropping back and our pelvis remaining more or less level. So again, we start to feel the significance of this center part of the body. And it's our attention is focused into there. This time, being very careful with your knees and your back, pushing your hips back, feeling your back extend gently, and then to come upright, let your hips drop back, feel your shoulders coming up, your head floating up, and push up. So this illustrates something really significant about the postures that we take and the way that we come to this upright position. Not as we habitually do, by straining and pulling on our shoulders and our neck and our back, but rather, again, through this process of yielding to the pull of gravity. See how my hips have gone back, and then I let gravity pull them down. And that brings my head and shoulders up with less strain. It's hard, it can be hard on the legs, so be careful with your knees. And this time, using this movement, rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. Don't overdo the movement. I'm trying to do it quite big so you can see what I'm doing. It's not a competition there. From here, it's dropping back, head coming up. Take your time. Push up. Again. One more time. And then for the next movement, bring your hands in front of you, turn horizontally, then push your hips back, swing around, draw your hands around and come back to the center, having brought your hands around. Nice smooth circle. Back the other way. This is called polishing the table. Notice this is not a back bend. In the back, you see here, now my hips go back, move across, and then coming back to that original position. polishing the table. One more in each direction. Good. And coming back to the standing. And in this position, aware of how gravity works through your body, lining yourself up with gravity and allowing your center of gravity to drop, and allowing gravity to draw your hips back so that we learn to stand with gravity rather than against it. And this is an important Tai Chi principle, that spaciousness that I mentioned within the body that allows for the flow of energy, for the harmonization of that flow, is very, very dependent on the space. If you have to fight to move, then there isn't the same harmonious quality. So this attention to the subtleties of our posture, and in particular how we're responding to the pull of gravity, is a really key element in these arts. And then just give your legs a shake. And it's important to note that these things are almost the opposite of what we've been taught. We're told to pull ourselves up, to pull our shoulders back, to chest out, and so on and so forth, which puts us in a position of conflict with gravity. Gravity is trying to pull me backwards in this position. And so quite often what happens is, after some time, is the fight with gravity begins to wear us out, and everything reverses. We end up hunched over and sort of being pulled down. Tai Chi seeks to blend with the various forces that act on it, and this is a principle that owes much to the martial aspect of Tai Chi, but has enormous implications in all of its aspects. If we can find a way of being upright without tensing, then we have more space within the body for movement. It's still very strong. It will be strong in the legs, and again, it does ask that we pay more attention to that inner structure of the body. Okay, so let's take a slightly wider posture at this point. A slightly more complicated movement. What we've done so far is relatively simple. This is called horse riding stance. You can go down quite low in this, but I'm not asking you to do that particularly at the moment. Just moving your weight a little bit from side to side. You're going to about 60% of your weight in your supporting leg, which is one of the reasons we take a wider posture, to give us a chance to measure that. Go into your left, so mirror my movements, and turning in the direction that your left foot is pointing. Go into your right and turn, same thing. Hands, again, to begin with, in this ball holding position, ball cradling position. Noticing how your arms move with you. This time going into your left, and let the movement swing your hand out and up to shoulder height. So it's more or less a mirror image of that supporting leg. Come back and do the same thing on the other side. Feel how that opens your chest. You move across, the movement of the weight and the turn pushes your hand out. This time, come back, leaving your hand at shoulder height, turning, drawing your hand across, turn your hand palm in so you're holding the ball. Move into your left leg, turn a little bit, and then as you go into the right, That swings your right hand out. Your left hand, the top hand, goes straight down till it's in front of the left hip. Coming back. This is parting the wild horse's mane. Only here, turn your hands palm in and come back into your right leg, carrying the ball. And then here, there's no rotation in your arms. Your left hand is palm up, your right hand is palm down. Parting the wild horse's mane. All the time in the back of your mind, rooting down, transferring your weight, turning from your center, supported from within. All of these factors that we've gradually begun to bring to the surface to become more aware of as the foundation, the background for all of the movements. You've got a lot to think about in this exercise. So you don't want to have to sort of keep thinking about those things. You want to just be aware of them in the back of your mind. One more time, parting the wild horse's mane, one more on each side. Okay, and then once again, shake out. Excuse me while I get a drink. We're told in the movements of the Tai Chi are rooted in our feet. We've seen how that works, both because of the physical stability that is so essential for these movements, but also because the root will give us this sense of a movement upwards. When we sink down, we feel the energy coming up. So rooted in the feet, transmitted through the legs, because the legs are the connection between upper body and feet. Controlled, directed, shaped through the center of the body. We've seen how that works, and it means that increasingly the focus of our attention is very centered. And this becomes a still point. It's described as being like the hub of a wheel. Like the hub of a wheel on a bicycle stays still as the wheel moves around it. And finally, expressed in our arms, expressed in the outer regions of the body in one way or another. So when we see a movement like part the wild horse's mane, the first thing we will always see is our arms moving, and we copy the arms. But if we pay attention, we begin to realize that the arms aren't the lead in these movements any more than the leaves of the tree are the sort of key part of the tree. They're important, but they wouldn't exist without the root. So the root is what we begin to focus on. But we want to think about the leaves as well. So we practice the rooting down until it becomes natural to us. And of course, there's benefits to that in our daily lives. So from this central position, turn one foot out and step forward. Pay attention to the stance. You can see again, keeping the width. If I stand like this, it's going to be like sort of trying to balance on a log or a tightrope. I'm just going to tense up. And just begin to once again transfer your weight. This time, when you go into your back leg, you get up to 70% of your weight in the back leg. When you go forwards, a little bit less, something like 60%. Still that feeling of your leg being compressed. And so when it starts to expand, as it will do, use that movement to move you into the other leg. So we can see how that yielding to the pull of gravity is actually, if anything could be said to be the thing that kickstarts the flow of energy, it's the yielding, the rooting down. So rooting, yielding, it's constantly with us. Now, sinking back, raising your toes a little bit, feeling more of your weight beginning to flow down through your back leg. You have the front foot turned out slightly. Go forwards, pushing the back knee forward, raises your heel, and again, a little bit more weight coming down into your leg. Thinking about that alignment of your posture, both in technical terms, hips and pelvis level, shoulders in line with your hips, but also in terms of the feel, the memory of being aligned, being supported, of not having to strain. And now looking to build that, to cultivate that over one leg. And then bringing the empty foot, as we would call it, in, push back, out to the side to get to the width again, lower your heel, and transfer your weight. Raise your toes, bring the foot in, just rest the ball of the foot down, go forwards, out to hip width, put your heel down, lower your toes, transfer your weight. Settle into the supporting leg, don't be in a hurry. And notice that actually your foot and your leg move in and out with a sort of smooth curve. Take your time. Yielding to the pull of gravity so that your weight goes down into the supporting leg. You go too quickly with this, you won't have time to give that much consideration. Shake out. This is a very important exercise because it begins to show us how we can move around and maintain these qualities. So back to the parallel position, this time turning your right foot out. This is an angle you can play about with. Step forward with your left foot again, keeping the stance and transferring your weight. The length of your step is about the same as your width, maybe a little bit more. You'll find that as you settle down more experienced people will know this, that actually you can take a slightly longer step. Transferring the weight and not leaning, not leading with your shoulders, pushing from the leg and keeping your shoulders in line with your hips. And then beginning to raise your toes and your heels, so gradually more of your weight flowing down, supported through one leg, until the vast majority of your weight is being supported in that way. And when we get to that point, that's when we can begin to take the step with a lot less strain. Imagine you're walking on thin ice. You don't just fall into the step, we plant the foot, put the ball of the foot down, lower the heel, test the ice a little bit, and then move your weight. So again, we're not taking a standard length of step. We're not trying to stride out. Yeah. And then take a few steps either forwards or backwards. Remember, as though you're walking on thin ice, as though you're walking, just paddling in the sea, testing the ground beneath your feet, that it will support you. And then changing direction. Pelvis, hips remaining level. Shoulders in line with your hips. Again, supported from within. Check out. And that sense of being supported from within is one of the understandings of this term internal art. Tai Chi and Qigong are described as internal arts. Now, have your right foot forwards again. Check your stance. Bringing our arms back into the movement. So this time, I move my weight forward. My arms follow until I settle into my front foot, and then they swing through. Going back. Most of the time, my hands and my fingers are trailing behind my shoulders. This is fisherman cast a net. You just start to experience a wave-like quality of movement from my legs up through the upper body, expressed in shoulders and arms. So once again, although inevitably a lot of our attention is going to be on our arms and our hands, it's like focusing on the leaves of the tree or the plant, not caring for the root. Ask yourself what you see. Do you see my arms swinging around? Or can you see that there is movement between my feet and my legs? This time, bring your hands in, same movement in feet and legs, hands palm forwards, and they just naturally curve up in the movement called pushing wave. The wave pushes your hands away, and because they're attached to your shoulders, they rise up. You're not lifting your arms. In fact, it would take a lot of effort to stop your hands coming up. There's a slightly stronger feeling than the previous exercise. A bit more focused. And then coming to this forwards position and again turning and see how that separates your hands. Just let them rest palm down. Move your weight into your back foot, let your hands drop. Turn towards the front foot and let that swing your arms around and up in the opposite direction. Going forwards. This is wind blows the willows. Combination of your weight moving and the turning in the center of your body will move your arms for you in a fluid, sustained way. Straining in your shoulders won't. Good, and good. Shake. So let's try those movements with the other foot forward. So again, checking your stance. And we're paying attention to what's happening in your feet and your legs, your weight moving forwards and backwards. Fisherman cast and net. Careful not to overextend or overuse your arms and your hands. Maintaining the focus of your attention. Try not to let your attention drift off into the ether. One more time. Switching now to pushing wave with that slightly stronger feeling, but not straining in your arms, your hands or your shoulders. And the legs do the work. Transfer your weight. Letting gravity do the work. Loading your legs so that they release and give you the energy for your arms to move. One more time. Coming forward, and as you sink into your front leg now, you turn, that separates your arms. Wind blows the willows, going back and turning, letting your arms follow. Remember the smoothness, the flow of the movement that we see in the upper part of your body is entirely dependent on those foundational aspects, the alignment, the root, transfer of your weight, turn in the center. Like a plant, with a flower, your arms are like the flower. The flower is only there because the root and the stem, so on and so forth, are healthy. This time, when you go forwards and turn, push your back knee forwards if you're going to go forwards, or you could raise your toes if you're going to go the other way. Bring the foot in either way. Take a step, plant the foot down, move your weight, turn, drawing your hands around, and use that to draw your other foot in. So now, this time, if it's comfortable, you bring your foot in, just raise the knee. This is dragonfly skims the water. Sink into your front leg or your supporting leg. Don't overextend your arms. Hips dropping back, remember. And then do one more. Then I'm going to change direction. Feeling back with the foot. Planting the foot down. One more time. Dragonfly skin. Give your legs a shake. Good. Once again, rubbing your hands together. And then tapping over your face. Move your head and neck. Shoulder. Your arm. Other side. And your back. Round your hips. And your legs. Nice and light on your belly. Yeah. The last exercise brings us back to these foundation principles and the outcomes of those, the feeling of being able to stand or to sit or to move with that sense of spaciousness, with that sense of the calmness, the quietness in our mind. All of these qualities, in my experience, are lost on a regular basis. All of these qualities are retrievable. The exercise is Embrace Tiger, Return to the Mountain. The mountain for me represents a lovely image of these qualities of stillness, of strength, of spaciousness and calmness, quietness. So once again, allowing gravity to pull your hips down, push up a little bit like the wild goose, but this time bringing your hands around as though they're going to hold a ball against your chest. Squeeze the ball in and let your hips drop, shoulders drop, hands follow. And start the whole cycle over again, feeling the point where gravity takes over and you start to yield to that. And just noting what it is that brings you back to the mountain. This is a really valuable quality to notice, that we're able to come back to a point of stillness, being rooted. One of the most useful things, I think, in our lives that Tai Chi has to offer. Embrace Tiger, return to the mountain. What is it that you would want to bring you back in those moments of frustration during your day? What's most useful to you to take away with you? Once more. And stand. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. As always, if you have any questions at any point, do feel free to email me.